Every time I bring up cars on this channel, I get a lot of people in the comments saying, you know, I drive a pickup truck that's 20 years old, or a car that's 20 years old, or whatever, or I just bought a car for $2,500 and I'm going to drive it till the wheels fall off. Well, there's actually a lot of people out there who are doing this right now. In fact, there are many people who are driving their cars until the wheels fall off, for a lot of different reasons, and some of them you can probably already guess. In fact, there was an entire story written about this because so many people are doing it. And one guy in this story, he has driven the same Toyota Tacoma truck for the past 24 years, and he's 45 years old. So imagine, he started driving this truck when he was probably 20. He estimates that he's probably saved about $100,000 over the years by never replacing this truck. The way he came up with that figure is what he would spend on buying a new car every 5 years, minus the $20,000 he has paid in repairs over the years to keep this truck going. And right now it has over 300,000 miles on it. And you don't see too many vehicles like that anymore where you have 300,000 miles and still going. But as you can imagine, not everybody's doing this to be frugal and save a bunch of money. You know, a lot of people are doing this because they have to. They have no other choice with the cost of cars today. Even used cars are too expensive for people to afford when you factor in the down payment they need, the interest rates that they're going to be paying on these car loans now. I mean, some people are paying double-digit interest rates on their car loans today. As of March 2024, the average transaction price on a new vehicle is $46,660 compared to $39,950 3 years ago. So the cost to buy a brand new car has gone up almost $7,000 on average in just a few years. That is a tremendous increase. And then you got the maintenance and repair costs of these cars, okay? That's also up 8.2% year over year, and insurance costs on cars are up a whopping 22.2% year over year. So just to have a car today costs more money than ever, even if it's not new. Just to keep it on the road is expensive now. And of course, we haven't even talked about gas prices or tolls or anything like that. That is also in addition to these things. So right now, the average age of a vehicle on the road right now in the US is about 12 and a half years, which is a new record high. And that's as of 2023. So it's reasonable to think that as 2024 goes on, that number might go even higher. And they say, well, this could also be due to the fact that cars stay on the road for longer now. They run longer than they used to because of the newer technology. Come on, guys. We all know that that's not true. It might be due to that in part, but the reality is people are keeping these cars longer because it's very hard to get into a new one at today's prices and interest rates, just like houses. They talked to a repair shop guy out of Michigan, okay, and he has a wall in his shop, and he used to put pictures up of all of his customers that had vehicles that made it past the 200,000 mile mark. And he stopped doing this years ago now because there's too many customers that have vehicles that with over 200,000 miles on it now. No longer is it like a special occurrence where people are reaching this milestone. It is becoming commonplace. So they asked this repair shop owner, what's the number one reason for this? And he said, because rising vehicle prices are leading to customers to hang on to their cars longer. It's that simple. So if we go all the way back to the 70s, the share of cars that were 10 years old or more on the road back in 1977 was 16.9% of all vehicles. And as of just the 2022 numbers, this is very lagging data, that number jumps all the way up to 44.2%. So people are driving old cars more than ever, guys. And I get people saying all the time, well, how come I see, you know, people all the time with these brand new cars and, you know, my neighbor has a brand new car and blah, 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 blah. Like, well, that's not the norm. You see people with brand new cars, but it is not the reality of most people. Now, one legitimate reason for people hanging on to old cars that actually does hold some weight is people that have older cars don't want to buy a new car because the repair costs on new cars are so much higher, because the more technology they throw into a vehicle, the more money it costs to fix when something breaks. And it also gives the chance of more things to break, you know? The more sensors, the more gadgets, the more features a car has, then the more likelihood something will come up down the road and will need a repair. Now, of course, if you buy a car brand new, many of those things that might come up will be covered by the warranty for the first, you know, several thousand miles or the first few years, whatever comes first. But if you buy a car that's newer, but it's not brand new and is out of warranty, any of those repair costs are going to fall on you. And here's the other problem, guys. In order for people to afford to buy cars, they are extending their payment terms a lot of times to 6, 7 years now. I mean, I think when I was growing up, the standard and like the most people would pay for the car would be a 5-year car loan. Well, now it's extending 6, 7, 8 years. Before you know it, they're gonna have a 30-year mortgage on a car. I mean, this is what they did with real estate, right? As real estate started becoming more expensive, they started subsidizing it. They started coming up with these loans. In fact, the 30-year mortgage was the government's idea in order to get people into more homes who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. Well, it looks like we're headed down that same path right now, only when it comes to vehicles. And so you have people that have these, 6, 7, 8 year car loans. And a lot of people are saying, listen, I'm not going to trade in my car and buy another one, at least until I'm done paying for this one. So that's also extending the life of how long people are hanging on to these cars for. And get this, guys, depending on what kind of car you have, obviously the amount of mileage you can expect to get out of it over the years can vary pretty substantially. Well, Lexus and Toyota take the cake when it comes to this. Their vehicles typically last longer than any other manufacturer. And here's something that you all should know, especially since there's this huge push for people to buy an electric car today. Electric vehicles have some of the highest rates of problems reported in the study. And this is according to J.D. Power. And this is because of their batteries, and they tend to come with more technology built in. So once again, way too many bells and whistles on these electric cars that can produce failure. And the batteries are the #1 problem source of the electric cars. And when you need to replace that, it can be several thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. They talked to another couple who said they used to replace their cars about every 7 or 8 years. Last year, their Ford Escape needed a new transmission, and that would have been usually their cue to say, hey, okay, let's get rid of this thing. Let's buy something else, right? But in order to buy a comparable car, it was so expensive that they decided to throw the $6,500 into the Ford Escape for the new transmission instead, because people can't afford it, guys. And this guy's like, I'm so glad I don't have an $800 a month car payment now, and we decided to fix the other car. And I can understand that, but as somebody who's been on both sides of the aisle, somebody who has owned a brand new car and an old car that gave trouble all the time, it's definitely a delicate balance of just taking your chances for sure. Even if it's more expensive to drive a brand new car, at least in my opinion, I like it better than having an old car that you never know when it's going to break down or how much it's going to cost to fix, because the reliability factor is paramount for me. So I would rather pay a little more to have a new car than drive an old car that I never know if it's going to start the next time I go to get in it, and that's a problem, especially when you're trying to get somewhere, you're going to be late, whatever. It can really spoil your plans. In fact, one time I got stranded all the way up in West Palm Beach because the fuel pump went out on my car. Had to get it towed all the way back down here to Miami, and that cost a fortune. Just the buzzkill that something like that gives you and how it completely ruins the day is something I don't want to experience. So they say people that get rid of their cars and upgrade to a new one typically do so when a repair comes up that is 10% or more of what they would have to pay for a new car. So say a new car costs $46,000, like it said earlier in this video, let's say $47,000. So if a repair comes up that is $5,000 or more, that might prompt somebody to buy a new car instead. Because the other factor that people decide to give up the car for is, like I just said, once they feel like they can't trust the car anymore, once the reliability factor is out the window, then they decide to get rid of the car.
You want to know how to find out when you're the sucker who's the last one holding the bag in real estate? It's when you own a house like this. This house is listed for rent for $15,000 a month. They previously rented it for $16,000, probably short term, back in November of 2023 for maybe a few months, because now it's already available again for $15,000. But here's the thing, when you look at the sales history of this house, the previous owner bought it for $2 million back in 2021, and now this person bought it for $2.8 million in 2023, and they're already delinquent on their property taxes. And here's the kicker and the funniest part of all. The name of the LLC that owns this house is Bozo 2 LLC. So looks like you're the bozo and the joke's on you.
I talked to another lady who drives a 2004 Cadillac DeVille. She says she doesn't want to get rid of this car. She wants to drive this car until the wheels fall off as well, because she sees the prices of these new cars and it's like, there's no way I'm going to sign up for that. Even if you can afford it, if you have something that's reliable and is treating you well, people may still opt to not upgrade. And speaking of cars, guys, I mentioned electric cars just a minute ago. Between the federal and state governments, they're doing everything they can to give away these electric cars, and people are still not buying them at the rates that they want to see. Tesla's the only electric car manufacturer that is selling a reasonable amount of these EVs, and even they have been slashing prices lately to get more people to buy them, which is a sign that sales are slowing down tremendously. But, you know, when I go to California, I see people with electric cars everywhere. And before, I used to think maybe it's because all these people are just like so environmentally conscious or whatever they want to call themselves, and that's why they're doing it. It's not that. It's because they're giving away these cars for free. You know, in a way, they're giving you such a discount to buy these cars, it's not even funny. And now Costco is throwing their hat in the mix to make these cars even cheaper, guys, because if you have a Costco membership now, you can get up to $2,000 off of a brand new car, and that $2,000 limit is only for Polestar cars, which are electric cars. So Costco is giving you $2,000 off the price tag, right? But don't forget, the federal government will also give you $7,500 off the price tag of a brand new electric car if the vehicle you're buying qualifies, okay? But on top of that, depending on the state that you live in, they give you additional subsidies. Like, for example, Colorado gives you the most, up to $12,000 in free money to buy an electric car, guys, okay? California, they give you $7,000 in free money to buy an electric car. Massachusetts, it's $3,500. In Maryland, it's $3,000. So for example, you go to California and you get $7,000 in addition to what the federal government gave you. That's $14,500 off the sticker price of a brand new electric car, assuming you're buying one that meets the subsidy requirements. But now there's a loophole with this. You can just lease one instead of buy one, and it doesn't have to meet the subsidy requirements. And all these people driving around in these new cars, you don't know if they bought it or leased it. So what's crazy to me is they have to give this level of discounts on these cars to get people to drive them and adopt them, and still the vast majority of people still prefer to drive a gas-powered car, and it's still cheaper, which is kind of hilarious. I mean, this just goes to show you how big of a failure the EV transition has been so far. And now Tesla is starting to show signs of weakness as well. And if they're the strongest EV automaker in this country, or maybe even the world, except for that one in China I forgot about, I'm not sure how bright of a future it really has, but I guess we'll see how things shake out over the years. Now, one thing I've been enjoying covering here on the channel recently has been all the different signs that the economy is slowing down. Well, obviously this is a big one about people hanging onto the cars until the wheels fall off. But when you're just looking at regular economic indicators when it comes to business, there are different signs that are showing weakness as well. Like, for example, we just had the employment report come out on Friday, which showed that the economy added 175,000 jobs in April, which is down significantly from the 315,000 that was shown in March, okay? But when you look at the hospitality jobs, it was only 5,000 new jobs being created or added in this sector compared to 53,000 in March. So the jobs numbers are finally starting to fall off a cliff. And the funny thing is that 175,000 jobs is likely to get revised down even further, because that's what keeps happening month after month. And guess what? This ties in directly with what I've been talking about with all this fast food trouble, guys, because they say these job openings are consistent with earnings reports over the past few weeks from companies like Starbucks and McDonald's, who have been saying that they are seeing fewer customers come into their stores right now. Even the ketchup company, Kraft Heinz, you know, they sell the ketchup and mustard and all the condiments to restaurants, and obviously they sell it to grocery store too. well, even their sales are starting to go down because restaurants are buying less from them right now. Starbucks has reported a 3% decline in their North American comparable store sales in the first quarter. Also, they've had their sales declining in China as well, which everybody praises China for being the most robust economy in the world, even though they're going through their own GFC right now.
Here we have a house for sale for $2 million, and they lowered the price by about $200,000 so far, and no takers. They've had it listed since the beginning of December of 2023, so about 5 months on the market with no takers. It's probably way too expensive, just like everything else, but at least their property taxes are low at only about $5,200 a year because they bought it back in 1997 for only $265,000. So now, fast forward to today, they're asking about 10 times more than what they paid for it back then, but it is just sitting here.
Starbucks saw their stock price go down by 16% because of this. Also, there was a survey by the Institute for Supply Management recently which showed that the services sector activity dipped into contractionary territory in April for the first time in 15 months. They say that the composition of the report was weak as the employment, new orders, and business activity components all declined. So it's happening, guys. We are seeing the economy slow down now in real time. You might have to close your eyes for a few minutes to see it because it's not happening as fast as people think. When you hear about a recession or an economic crash or housing crash, everybody thinks it's going to happen tomorrow, that you're going to wake up to headlines that everything is down 50%. And that's not how it works. It happens day by day. And that's why all these update videos that you guys are seeing from me are snowballing into this major recession that we are already in. You know, on the surface, some of these stories might not sound that significant, but just add up everything I've been talking about over the past few months. And that's just since the beginning of this year. And then tell me that that isn't significant. And to make matters worse for people is the wage growth is not keeping up with inflation, guys. I don't care what you hear about this, but it is just not true. Because when you look at the wage growth, okay, this is the average hourly earnings of all employees, total private change from a year earlier. And since 2022, you can see that the wage growth has been steadily declining by a pretty wide margin. Back at the beginning of 2022, it was almost 6%. Well, today it is down to about 3.8%. That is right around the inflation number that they keep giving us. And once you factor in, oh, they're taking out taxes from that additional 3.8% raise, and the fact that a lot of categories within this so-called 3.8% inflation have skyrocketed double digits, it doesn't matter. This 3.8% increase in wages that people are getting is not enough to keep up with it. And also, we're seeing unemployment slowly go up. You know, just a few months ago it was around 3.5%. Well, in March, it was 3.8%. Now in April, it's 3.9%. So slowly inching up. It's not happening all at once, but it's happening little by little. And remember, this is exactly what the Fed wants to see. They want to see a slowdown in wage growth so that way they don't have to hike interest rates, because that's one thing they're nervous about right now. They're thinking they're going to have to look bad and hike interest rates if the economy keeps booming, so to speak. But if wage growth keeps falling, then they won't have to do that because people just won't have the money to go out and buy things. So naturally, that'll help inflation come down. That's their way of thinking on this. Now, one other major thing that goes unnoticed a lot of times that shows you the economy is slowing down as well is shipping, particularly when it comes to the trucking business, guys. Last year, there was that big bankruptcy with Yellow Trucking. You know, it made big headlines last year, and that was just because that's one of the biggest trucking companies that has gone through this. But there's been a lot of other smaller trucking companies that are also going under over this past year in between. You have Nationwide Cargo. They're a general freight trucking company, and they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in March, and they have 183 trucks and 171 drivers. They're going under. You have Boateng Logistics, who just closed their doors as of February 22nd after filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and they have plans to liquidate all their assets. You have another trucking company, JJ & Sons Logistics, and they filed for Chapter 7 liquidation bankruptcy in January. And the top cited reason for all these companies that are filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy is extreme financial distress. The reason they're seeing this is because their shipping volumes have gone way down. I have had several truckers who watch my channel comment below telling us that this is actually what's happening, guys. This is not an illusion. Shipping volumes are down, which means people are not buying as much stuff, which also means that the economic data that we're being told is a lie. Then you have another trucking company, Arnold Transportation. They've been in business for 92 years, guys, and now they are shutting their doors. They just filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy on April 30th. They're going down. So imagine a company like this has stayed in business for the past 92 years, made it through World War II, you know, made it through past recessions and big economic hiccups and ups and downs. And only now it's enough to give it the final killing blow where they can't afford to stay in business anymore. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I look at. Like, if a company that's been around for that long is only being put out of business now, that must tell you that this is the worst economy we've had in about 100 years, which lines up with a lot of other things I've heard. A lot of people think that this is going to be just as bad, if not worse, than the Great Depression once everything comes to a full head. And I believe it. I think it can be. And I think the main reason for that is because our government and our leaders have kicked the can down the road too far. You know, they've delayed all these problems, and we should have had a longer recession during the GFC without the money printing, you know, because without the money printing, things would have been worse for longer and would have forced our economy to recover naturally. But once they figured out back then, they could just give away free money and artificially stimulate everything. That has been the playbook ever since. And because of that, we're all going to be paying for it when it's all over with. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here. And I'll see you in the next one.